Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some armies in Age of Sigmar 3rd edition that I think are going to come flying out the gates. Maybe not necessarily flying, but they're going to be good armies for the new edition. All the points changes we've seen so far, the fact that there's very little rules that will change amongst many of the models in these armies, so I'm not expecting large FAQs on them. And you know, this may change once we see the FAQ, and I'll probably come back and do this video again after the FAQ, but I think these are 6 particular armies that I think are looking really good and positive. And I'll talk a little bit about why I think they're looking good and positive in each video, or a little slide after this. But I want to go through some armies, 6 in particular, that I think are going to be really good in the new edition of Age of Sigmar, that have just had changes and rules that benefit them and work for them really well. So without further ado, what we're going to do, we're going to get straight into this. This is going to be 6 armies that I think are going to be good in Age of Sigmar 3rd edition. And so, number 1, I have Slaves to Darkness, the undivided warriors of chaos, or sometimes marked as well. So, one big thing that I think is noticeable for Slaves to Darkness is the very minor points changes they saw over nearly everything they have access to. I think this is just such a really good thing here that a lot of their stuff just stayed the same, or in fact went down. They weren't really affected. They pretty much are going to be playing with the same armies they had on the table, minus very few things. So they're not losing out a lot of this. On average, I'm pretty sure they actually went down on like a relative change to everything else in the game. They went down about 5%, where a lot of other things actually went up. So they're one of the ones that actually went down quite dramatically in the points changes in comparison to everything else. Another thing is prayers. We make great use of prayers within the Slaves to Darkness. You can put them on very durable priests like your war shrines that can, you know, have pretty good effect radiuses. I think you can make great use of some of the prayers that you have access here. Especially Curse, I think, could be really great to give some mortal wound output to your Slaves to Darkness units. And of course, talking about Slaves to Darkness units and points in general, Be'lakor going down is just awesome. I think he's really great already, and going down, I think he went down about 30 points. He really just comes out strong out of the changes we've seen so far. And what's cool about him is he's a strong combat wizard. And you've got a lot of these throughout Slaves to Darkness that are great wizards that can make use of the Flaming Weapon spell. That's one of the generic spells. Gives +1 damage on a wizard's weapon. You've got plenty of wizards that can make great use of that spell throughout the army. And I know that's only a singular spell on singular models, but that really is a good spell to have on some strong casting wizards that you have great access to. What's cool with the reinforcement things coming into how you build up your army with army composition and stuff like that. Slaves to Darkness actually have a great variety of unit sizes in their army, so you can get lots of cheap models without using reinforcement points, in say grabbing Marauders, and you can also get, you know, much more elite troops as well, like your Chaos Warriors, Chaos Knights, the Chosen, etc. You got a lot of 5s in the army. You don't really have in Slaves to Darkness too many of those odd sort of 3s. Vanguard being the exception, but 3 Vanguard is still a decent unit. So you've just got this great mix within the army of how you want to play with all your different unit sizes in the force. You've also got a good ally pool with Slaves to Darkness. They can pull in allies from a bunch of different Chaos Gods and bring in those pieces to sort of plug in and fill in the gaps there. And a wide variety of playstyles as well. Slaves to Darkness are one of those books that I think has one of the best ways that you put together sub-factions, where you get artifacts and spells and all that sort of stuff, depending on how you choose to play the sub-faction. Cities and the Soulblight Gravelords do this as well. It's a great way to have sub-factions built. It allows you to just pivot your troops in and change up how you're playing to sort of keep going along and playing with the meta. And Slaves can do this just because they've got these really great unique sub-factions that you can be playing one style one day, and then all of a sudden, you know, your local meta or things start to change as your friends get other models. You can change it up and play with some different models, well, the same models in a different way. Next, number 2, Cities of Sigmar. This is a personal favourite of mine. Anyone should know, if they watch the channel, I love Cities of Sigmar. So, something about them, minor points changes once again, like Slaves to Darkness, cities didn't really see all too many increases across their army. They saw a few here and there, but nothing major, when in fact, you know, the general sort of size of the army going up. Cities, I feel, really didn't lose all that much. In a comparative sort of points value, they slightly went down at about 1.9% down on sort of the comparable to every other army in the game, which is nice. So they're one of those ones that got some discount. Prayers is also just another nice thing here. Rune Lords get access to them. I think this makes them a little bit more useful, especially with their ability to do a couple of unbinds and dispels and stuff. And it should be mentioned, talking about the Dwarden character here, that Dwarden are generally the part of Cities of Sigmar that went up the most, while we saw decreases in many other parts. And generally, shooting did go up as well, especially for some particularly good shooting units. We have, though, loads of good shooting units with Cities of Sigmar. They can make great use of this. They can set up nice lines to really make use of that Unleash Hell and pick fire corridors and stuff. And while, you know, cities did lose a little bit on not being able to stack bonuses to make handgunners insane, they can get lots of them for, you know, cheap prices. And I've always sort of been a fan of the MSU handgunners units with like multiple Hochland long rifles in them, or long rifles as they're just now called. But also your cavalry shooting units are really cool as well, because I don't care about the coherency rules, so large units that like Outriders can put out a decent amount of damage and not really care about coherency. But Pistoliers are also a great sort of mixed unit. You've got great cheap hero monsters in the army. The Dreadnought Black Dragon is fantastic at his points cost, as is the Free Guild General on Griffin. And, you know, we've even got some monster wizards. The Sorceress on Black Dragon, she's always been a little bit of a laugh, I guess, for a lot of people. But I do think there's definitely some play, and we talked about it a little bit in our Mortal Citizens show, talking about Broken Realms Techless, and in particular Settlers Gain. We talked about the Free Guild, or the Battle Mage on Griffin rather, and how we think it actually has some play. And I think with some of the new spells and stuff there, it may actually be pretty darn cool to have this Battle Mage on Griffin in your armies now. You've just got this, much like Slaves to Darkness, as I previously mentioned, you've got a good units mix here. You've got, you know, 3-man units, you can make 6-man units, you've got 5s, you've got 10s. You got access, you know, just to all these different versatile units as well in different cities. Just got so many units. It's crazy that you can sort of chop and change how you want. And this is the great thing about cities. They continuously will just chop and change, and I think it's got access to so many war skills. It's hard for cities to not be good, because they can pull and pick from so many places and just pivot and change their list all the time. Number 3, and this one might get, I guess, a little bit of flack from some people, but Lumineth Realm-Lords. So this is an interesting one. Now, I have a couple of friends who play Lumineth Realm-Lords, and I will say that some of their armies actually got hit. However, most of them played the Cow Mountain builds, and I think that Cow Mountain build is the one that got hit the most, despite not being probably the most competitive Lumineth Realm-Lords build around. The Venari Orlin Wardens and Sentinels both didn't go up very much. I know the Wardens did, and I'll talk a little bit about how the Sentinels didn't, but they also did, because if Wardens go up, that means Sentinels go up as a, I guess, part of that, because you have to take Wardens to have Sentinels as battle line. However, I don't think they went up enough. I was really looking at like building Lumineth Realm-Lord lists and seeing what you can do. The Hurricane stuff didn't go up much either. Severeth is still definitely a good piece. And you've also got the other Wind Spirits there as well, which are great still. And you've got like this good access to good different units in the army. I think what, if anything, these changes to Lumineth are going to do is going to make Lumineth players think about a more varied army. You're no longer going to have the Mountain Men as your full army, I don't think. You're no longer going to have Techless and this one battalion. I think, speaking of Techless, you've got strong magic even without him in the army. You've got access to good wizards. And a lot of wizards. Like, there can be, you know, benefits of quantity over quality in that as well. But also, Techless costing so many points now, he's not necessarily an auto-include in lists anymore. And I think that's actually a good thing for Lumineth Realm-Lords. I think it's going to allow you to spend those points elsewhere and sort of bring in some more interesting pieces to sort of, you know, fit very particular roles within your list. I think at the core of Lumineth Realm-Lords now, we are going to see the Venari become the very core of Lumineth, like, the lore dictates they are. You're going to have Wardens, Sentinels, and maybe even a unit of Dawn Riders, etc. for some fast-moving, hard-hitting cavalry against other armies' hordes, because there still will be hordes in the game. But you've also got access to bringing some Hurricane, bringing some defensive units like those, like the Mountain Cow people, and you've also got like great shooting in the army. I mean, Sentinels, they only went up 10 points. They're still amazing. And really, I think 10 Wardens fight really cool. You're going to get Aether Quartz across your army. I think little 10-man units of Wardens is really interesting to play around with, because it's going to allow you to have more Aether Quartz reserves within your army. And, you can spend those points upgrading like your Sentinel units to get big blobs of shooting that don't care about line of sight. You can go watch the End of Spell video we did. Sentinels behind maybe a prismatic palisade is pretty cool, where they can't be targeted back. But what Lumineth do really well is, because of all these units, they've got fast-moving units, they've got flying units, they've got good defensive units. They're good at both being a reactive and an aggressive army at the same time. You can have your Wardens sit there and hold and, weather the alpha strike or the first strike of your opponent, and be reactive and be aggressive on that reaction. But in the same time, you could be aggressive turn one, sending Dawn Riders and Wind Chargers down your opponent's throat early in the game. I do think Lumineth Realm-Lords have a ton to give in the new edition. Number 4, Ogor Mawtribes. Now, Ogres are always one of those armies that are just an absolute ton of fun to play. They literally want to run up, smash stuff, and it makes for good, fun games of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Now, Ogres didn't see many points increases. They went up about 0.9% on the average of, how the game looks now. But they did have some big changes to maybe a few of the more heavy hitting pieces in the game. But that's because they got a lot better. So, first of all, they had great changes to some unit sizes. I think Lead Belchers going up to the 4-man is really nice, having to spend, reinforcement points. And I really do like the 4-man sized units for Ogres. Being able to choose to go from 4 to 8 is really nice. It gets all the effects of the Ogre Charge rule, if you choose to upgrade them, etc. They've got strong monster heroes. I mean, we all know about Frostlords on Stonehorns, but I think a Frostlord on Thundertusk is just as deadly now, or, not just as deadly, but is a good option now. And the Huskguards have some use as well. With the prayers coming into it, we've got the Huskguard on the Thundertusk potentially having some use within the army now that he's a priest. And we've got strong Battleline Behemoths. Now, one of the things with this Battleline Behemoth is you look at some of the other armies, and I'll look at like cities, my own personal favourite. Hydras and Charybdis aren't particularly great, but with the Ogor Mawtribes, Thundertusk and Stonehorns certainly are a good Battleline Behemoths. They'll do a lot of damage, and they'll really punch for what they can do. You've also got like this great wound density within the army. People are talking about like the unit of 18 Gluttons. I actually think that's going to be an amazingly tough unit to remove off the table. That's 72 wounds, with Rally, they're returning models with 4 wounds apiece. You just got wounds on the table, bodies on the table. Ogres are going to do good with like the Horde style Ogre lists, I think. You're going to be able to really block up and just cover the board space with just meat. And what's cool about this too is your small frontage units, things like Iron Guts, etc., they still pack an absolute punch. Even like Ogre Gluttons, if they're only able to get, 6 into combat, that's a pretty decent amount of fighting power there. You give them the 2 hand weapons, so they're re-rolling their hits, they do mortal wounds when they charge in larger units, and they also, they're 2 damage a pop. Gluttons can do like a lot of damage, and so can most ogres with very few amount of models, so it's really cool. The restrictions on unit sizes don't really hurt them. Small, little kill units of ogres definitely do a ton of damage. I really do think that ogres are going to have a good place. They might not be the most competitive, but I think they're a great army that really not a lot is going to change. I think the things that they could do in the previous edition that were great are just going to be great again. They're going to be able to take that monster mash list and run monster trucks into people. They're going to be able to put lots of Gluttons on the table and just smash people with Gluttons. I think ogres will be pretty much where they were, maybe even a little bit higher. Number 5, Sons of Behemat, and this is in here just for one simple reason. Whether or not it's the most competitive army, I don't care. They get in this list because they're going to be amazing to both fight against and play with in the new edition, and that Mega Gargant's a battle line for Sons of Behemat. This is what a lot of people wanted upon release of the army. They want to play with 4 megas. They don't want any of those little weedy giants. They want the big boys on the table. Cannot wait to get an army of these myself. Just put 4 megas together. It'd be amazing. So much fun to just go and smash with. This is everything this army should have been on launch. I don't think there's much more to say about it. But you know, actually there is, because let's talk a little bit more about it, because they are going to get all the Behemoth rules that are coming out. Not to mention they're also going to get all the rules for the monster Behemoths that are coming out as well, which is really cool. So you're going to be able to do all those, you know, awesome things you can do with the monster Behemoths. You're going to get both your heroic actions, and you're going to get access to generic artifacts. You're gonna be able to do like all the monster damage table stuff as well. There's just so much that Gargants get out of this new edition. I think they're going to be an absolute blast to play. And number 6, Kharadron Overlords. Now, this is another one that people might not agree with. Kharadron Overlords were one of the top armies in the previous edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, especially right near the end of it. They've always been an army that generally comes out swinging pretty hard when a new book hits. They fade away for a little bit, come out swinging again when some things drop their way. But I think at the start of the 3rd edition of Age of Sigmar, Kharadron Overlords are going to be just fine. In fact, comparatively, they actually went down a little bit on their comparative points to the rest of the game, where they actually went down about 0.8% in comparison to other armies. Shooting, which is their main thing, are still strong. So there's a ton of stuff there. You can just, you know, with this, you have access to Unleash Hell pretty much board wide. You can use it wherever you want, whenever you need it. It's a great little command ability you can use. Obviously, you know, all the restrictions, you can't do it with everything, but the fact that Kharadron can just do it pretty much every turn because they've got so many shooting units on the table is cool. Spell in a bottle, I think this definitely has increased in value as an item. The fact that endless spells now activate in both hero phases, I think we're going to see a lot of use out of this now, maybe even more so. And it's potentially got, you know, other spells that can work inside it, which is really cool. I think with the changes to endless spells, a bunch more spells work inside this really cool little artifact. Reinforcing restrictions generally don't have to be an issue with Kharadron Overlords. They can do really well in small units. And also, you know, because there's no restrictions on how many units can go into a single ship, to save yourself reinforcement points, you simply start taking smaller units but more of them. Is an interesting thing. And also, yeah, you've got these options now with other units that have come into play. I think, you know, Sky Wardens are better in the bigger units than the Engine Riggers, who hit harder. So you've definitely got all these different things you can do with play. They have good board control that they are able to make use of, though, you know, Fly High maybe is a little bit easier to stop now with the smaller board sizes. But you definitely got a ton of things you can do with the army that it's bound to have some good play within the new edition. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's an army you think has some particular play in the new edition from what you've seen? Obviously, we are still, as mentioned, waiting for that FAQ, so there are going to be some things to change maybe our minds, but, you know, that is how we learn. We make assumptions now, and we can change our opinions later as things are given to us more, and we can change those opinions later. But at the moment, I think these 6 armies are going to be great in the new edition. I don't think too much is going to change for many of them in the new edition, and especially not any of the things that sort of talked about. But, you know, never say never. Things can always change. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are you thinking of for the new edition so far? What are some things you're looking out for your armies? Do you think there maybe be some FAQs for you on particular things within your forces? Let us know in the comments below. Well, thank you all for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Also, while you're at it, why not come chat more with us on Discord? We've got a link in the description of the video below to our Discord server. You can come chat with me and other members of our fine little community here at Sinful Gaming. Lastly, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel in various different ways. First of all, to our Patreon members, Christian Weir, James Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lowe, Outer and Shot First, James Crowder, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, Tim Newman, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, MJ, and Dyna226. Thank you to, as well, our YouTube members, Green Roots Gaming, Fire Titan, Steve T, The Real Zeot, Chris Wallace, Turriot12, Vinny, and Loch Lorick. And a special thanks to our artist who does all the channel art for us, Lady Witchfox Art, thank you very much. And to our Discord moderator, Xmorphic, you do a fantastic job on Discord for us as well. Thank you all, everyone, for watching. If you'd like to help support on Patreon or YouTube member, or help support the channel in another way, you can do so by following one of the links in the description of the video to Patreon or YouTube members, or go buy some Sinful Gaming merch from our Teespring store, also linked in the video's description. That's it for today, everyone. Thank you again. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.